we should move on to our last speaker, who is Bindu Panikar. She's an assistant professor also at the Rubenstein School of Environment and Natural Resources, also a Gund Fellow. And her work, as you will find out, centers around environmental health, environmental policy, natural resources, social movements, and environmental justice. And she'll be talking about a sampling of that work here with us today. So Bindu, back over to you.
So hi, everyone. Thanks to Gund for this great opportunity. I'm really honored to be part of this panel. So today I'm going to be talking about my environmental justice work that I've been doing in Vermont. So basically going from national scale, from what Jesse was talking about, to a very local Vermont-based scale to some extent. This work started about two years back and was done in partnership with some of the local community groups like Center for Whole Communities, Community Action Works, also with the Vermont Law School and the CVOEO's Mobile Homes Program. So this work was started because Department of Environmental Conservation got in touch with some of us and they wanted to figure out how to start better addressing environmental justice issues in Vermont because under the agreement that DEC has with the Environmental Protection Agency, they said that they have to build an environmental justice component. So partly this work started as a result of that. So in this talk, I'll be going over what environmental justice means to some extent, and I situate my work within this definitional framing to some extent. So as you can see from this slide, environmental justice can mean many things, and that there are many ways of characterizing environmental justice. And this is something that's not been fully explored. So the main purpose of the talk today is to go over some of these theoretical foundations, especially the distributive justice, and then explore also some relevant examples of distributive justice situated in Vermont. Notions of justice also have long been discussed and theorized. And there is a plural discourse of justice. And understandings of justice are also very flexible and very heterogeneous. And for example, definitions of environmental justice used by environmental justice movements can be sometimes different from what theoretical definitions propose, or even the academic definitions of environmental justice. So one of the commonly defined definition is that of the equitable distribution of environmental risks and benefits, and also, the fair and meaningful participation in environmental decision making, and also the recognition of different ways of life. So that kind of covers all the three tables on the screen here. But to also talk a little bit briefly about, the theories of justice have stemmed from a long line of research done by, political scientists, and also from many other disciplines. But the foremost within the person who's theorized justice is John Rawls, especially in his book, The Theory of Justice. And there's a quote from him on the screen here, which says, "A society should be organized in a way that leaves the worst off better off. Justice is that which maximizes the well-being of the least well-off." So mostly what we see are, most of the studies that we see done are addressing distributional inequities to some extent. So in this slide, it shows like one of the ways of addressing distributive inequities is to look into whose needs are being addressed here, but also, what are the spatial distributions of inequities in a given area. So here the slide shows the spatial analysis that we did, which looked at combined social demographic information with the environmental information and also the health information. And the results here show that minority population, now mostly non-white, and people with limited English proficiency have higher risk from air pollution, also polluting sites. They are more vulnerable to heat vulnerability as well, as you see in this slide. And another way of looking into distributional issues is to look into the distribution of needs to some extent. And here, the results presented on the slide is based on the survey that we did. We did a door-to-door survey across Vermont, where we knocked on the door of most of the communities in the underserved areas in Vermont. And our study finds that the non-white population that we surveyed were twice as likely to report lack of access to public transportation, not to own a vehicle, had trouble paying for food, also had higher exposures to mold, twice as likely to be exposed to mold, and also report autoimmune disorders. And there were 3 times more likely to rely on public transportation, have trouble paying for electricity, go hungry in a month, not have a primary care doctor, and also higher reports of Lyme disease in this particular population than the white respondents. So you can see that many of the basic needs that we, some of our basic needs are not met, like access to food or, transportation or electricity and such, and access to doctors. Another way of looking at distributional justice is to look into distribution of contributions and capabilities. And distribution of contributions is a principle of distributing goods or burdens according to the contributions that we make, be it positive or negative contributions. And one example is that the polluter pays the cost of cleaning up. This is just one example, but here I really wanted to focus on the experiences of the migrant farm workers. So this is data that was obtained from the Migrant Justice Health and Safety surveys, which were done around 2020. And I'm actually in the process of still looking into this data, and I had to get it translated. But one of the key things that I wanted to share is that These are people, about 38% of them are working over 12 hours, but without having gotten adequate health and safety training. Um, Especially on biological safety and chemical safety, very few people, or even environmental risk, very few people have gotten training, which is something that is of concern. But if you compare that with the experience of harm from these chemical and biological agents that they are exposed to, especially harm from exposure to formaldehyde or iodine or acid, you can see about, in some cases, over 50% of the population have reported risks and harms from, occupational health hazards. And only about 16% have medical insurance. Also important to note is that about 13% of this population actually also talked about contracting diseases transmitted by cows. Considering that we're in the age of pandemic, that's something that's important to note. Also, another way of looking at the distributive inequities is to look into our distribution of values. So distribution according to values is a principle that addresses, does it, our the distribution of resources, does it actually address our human values and human needs to some extent? Does it nurture the human values and its virtues to some extent? And this slide here shows, again, some results from the survey work that we did. It looks into participation in household transition benefits. So this is looking into energy justice issues. And what the slide really shows is that non-white population were 7 times less likely to have solar panels than the white population, when there was really not much of a difference between people having solar panel or not having solar panel by income. And you also see that renters were about 3 times more likely to not have solar panels at home. There was not much of a difference observed by weatherization, but also you can see that many of the low-income people, but also non-white respondents and non-home owners were also less likely to know about the statewide energy plans and all the benefits that it offers. So this is the last slide. Basically, what I wanted to share is that distributional inequities is just one of the ways to actually look into it. The key thing to highlight within this is that equity is mediated, or you look into equity around the norms of economy, and also the notion of justice is something that can be calculated and addressed as another conception that's kind of addressed within the distributional justice based scholarship. But we also have to kind of understand, do we have enough resources for ongoing monitoring of distributional needs, and what capacities and capabilities do we have at the state level to address some of these issues? Apart from distributional justice, we also need to kind of look into who gets to decide, environmental, who gets to decide issues related to environmental decision-making in the state, and whose knowledge systems and traditions and cultures are valued within decision-making, or even ordering of societies and also of our environment.